As a synthesist who struggles to correctly identify the genre my own music falls into, it's caused me to become very critical of the concept of genre itself. In order to create within a specific genre, the creative process must be mediated by a consideration for that genre's conventions and standards. There are a few primary reasons to conform to genre: out of reverence for the stylistic trappings of certain genres, to join in with the culture, as genres and subcultures tend to operate harmoniously together, and for marketing purposes. But this framework is limiting. Genre isn't always the best tool for an artist to use, although its existence points towards the importance of understanding and engaging with audiences. Although sometimes the restrictions genre imposes on an artist can be helpful, it can also at times be counterproductive. Genre has an important yet complicated function within the ecosystem of music for both artists and audiences. But in the current digital media landscape, many aspects of its function have become overextended to the point of reversal. Reversal is one of the laws described by Marshall McLuhan's 4 Laws of Media, which will be explored and explained in more depth later on in this video during the analysis/breakdown section. Marshall McLuhan was a media theorist who coined the term "the medium is the message," and basically predicted social media's societal impact over 40 years before social media was even invented. In this video, I'll be utilizing some of the media theory provided by McLuhan as tools to break apart and understand genre. But in order to deconstruct genre, we should first try to understand what it is, what it does, and why it does what it does. What is genre? Genre is the categorical delineation between varying styles or aesthetic presentations within various entertainment mediums, ranging from music to movies to books to paintings to board games, video games, etc. Genre is a tool that mediates the relationship between audiences and artists. It exists to solve 2 problems, although it might be better to think of it as solving one problem that has 2 sides to it. The first side of the problem: as an audience member, how do you find the art you most want to engage with? What this question really means is, how do you sort infinite human creations? Take the sum total of all music produced in just 1 year and try to sort through it. As of 2019, approximately 40,000 tracks were being added to Spotify every day. That's approximately 14.6 million a year. So how are you going to sort through all of those 14.6 million songs? You definitely can't listen to all of them. At an average length of 3 minutes and 30 seconds, listening to 40,000 songs would take 140,000 minutes. That's 3 straight months of listening for each day's worth of music uploaded. Extrapolating further, to listen to all songs released in a year would take approximately a century. This same problem exists across other mediums as well. There are approximately 4 million books released a year. Movies and TV shows are a bit more limited, which makes sense considering heightened production costs, ranging from the hundreds to low thousands of new editions per year. I couldn't find proper stats on comics, but it's a minimum of 1,000 new comics released per year, likely much higher. How do we sort all of this then? That's where genre comes in as a foundational step within a larger media sorting mechanism. This mechanism is dynamic in nature and made up of systems of humans mediated by the latest communication technologies. Genre is an almost bedrock-like aspect of our media sorting mechanisms. You know that in the past you've enjoyed music with certain genre tags, be it synthwave or doom metal or fusion jazz or chillwave, pop punk, shoegaze, new wave, etc. So you keep your eyes open for when those genre tags appear. You possibly seek these out intentionally or just allow them to come to you. Spotify's algorithm seemed attuned to operating within these delineations as well. This works well enough to connect you with music you seem to like, for the most part. There's a cultural aspect to all of this too, beyond the algorithmic digital side. Cultures and subcultures tend to form around genres, and these social systems and networks act as taste curation, quality control, and distribution channels. This occurs similarly in all other entertainment mediums as well. So that's the audience side of the problem genre contributes towards solving. The other side of the problem: as an artist, how can your art reach the people who will actually care to engage with it? As an artist in the modern digital media landscape, you have an audience of potentially billions. Due to digitization and global interconnection facilitated by the internet, your art can potentially reach every single human being on Earth. And if it's 2014 and you are the band U2, you just might. But assuming it's not 2014 and you're not the band U2, this task is a bit trickier. The thing is, the internet is more or less equal opportunity. In practice, due to the nature of class, economics, and legacy power structures, it isn't really equal opportunity, but the barrier for entry to this game has progressively been lowered by the internet since its invention. So you record your album or write your book or make any art within your preferred medium. Now you want to reach people with it. You need to engage in marketing. So how do you figure out who your ideal audience is? This is where genre steps in. Genre is a neat tool handed to you by culture, giving you a series of categories your art can be packaged within. It acts as a simple, high-level identifier when sending your art into the world. Ideally, you thought about this before you made your art. If not, all good. You can reverse engineer it a bit, work out the nearest category to what you've made. Once you've found your genre or reshaped your creative product to better fit a genre, it's time to send it out into the world. Within your chosen genre, you might identify a subgenre that better fits your art, and it can be categorized within that as well. Ultimately, genre acts as an initial communication with an audience, giving them a distilled idea of what they can expect from your work of art. And in turn, that expectation is a series of standards your art is being held against. By making art to the standards of a genre, you're profoundly more likely to connect with an audience, as genre is a handy tool through which audiences sort art. Therefore, by adhering to a genre, an artist is placing themselves within view of an audience. So what's the problem? Genre's status as a marketing and art sorting tool has hit a point of reversal, where its original function is being served less and less effectively. Genre as a concept is so deep and structural to how we think about art and culture that it's often overlooked and taken for granted, to the point that as it fails us, it can be hard to even recognize what's happening. This might have been a latent feature of genre this entire time, but given the digital media landscape which has emerged with the rise of the internet and social media, the problem is being compounded. This isn't to say that genre is inherently problematic or that online social networks are inherently problematic. Just that the way things are currently playing themselves out has become less about serving the connection between art and audiences and more about how art and audiences can serve social media. Marshall McLuhan was a media theorist and philosopher who was well known in the 60s, 70s period, who coined the term, "The medium is the message." This aphorism points to the causal relationship between media, artwork, content, and the mediums they were created for and by. It points to the relationship between humans, the technology they produce, and how that technology impacts them, forming the environment for the next technologies and ultimately shaping human development in an almost deterministic manner. The statement, "the medium is the message," is an assertion that the impact medium has on media, art, and content is of primary causal significance in the history of human culture. The message of a medium is the environment it creates, the end result product of that medium. McLuhan's definition of medium is anything that extends the human body. There's significant crossover between how McLuhan defines medium and how most people would define technology. A car is an extension of our feet, paired with our desire to travel. A telescope is an extension of the eye, paired with our desire to see further. A television is an extension of our eyes and ears, paired with our desire to communicate. The computer and smartphone are further extensions of our desire to communicate. He makes the case that new mediums utilize former mediums as their content. Speech is a medium, the contents of which are thoughts. Writing is a medium, the content of which is speech. Television is a medium, the content of which is writing. Television shows, newspaper articles, movies, books all become the content of the internet, computer, and smartphone. And on it goes. I've described a very linear progression of mediums, but in practice their expression can be far more complex, and they aren't always linearly progressive in their relationships. McLuhan's theory of media is distilled in his 4 laws of media, or tetrad of media effects. To quote from Eric and Marshall McLuhan, as quoted by an article from socialepistemology.com, which you can find linked in the description or the top thingy somewhere, we found that everything mankind makes and does, every procedure, every style, every artifact, every poem, song, painting, gimmick, gadget, theory, technology, every product of human effort, manifested the same 4 dimensions. Every medium, 1. Enhances some human function. 2. Obsolesces a previous way of achieving that function. 3. Retrieves something from the past that was obsolesced earlier. And 4. When pushed to the limits of its potential, reverses or flips into an opposite or complementary form. Hopefully that all makes sense. Now, let's use this framework of McLuhan's 4 laws to analyze genre as a medium. Rule 1. Every medium enhances some human function. Genre's function is to mediate the relationship between artists and audiences. It is a mechanism by which humans sort their art and entertainment media that makes it easier for audiences to find what they want to engage with. It also gives artists boundaries to operate within that are understood by the audience, in a way focusing the creative act and facilitating a symbiotic relationship between audiences and artists. It also enhances and refines aspects of style and thematic elements within genres. Rule 2. Every medium obsolesces a previous way of achieving that function. Genre obsolesces individual subjectivity and chaotic, unrestrained creativity. By creating an understood set of artistic guide rails from a set of grouped art objects, resulting in the further production of comparable art objects, comparison becomes a valid form of criticism and analysis, allowing for less subjectivity. To put it another way, since there are objective features that become stable within any specific genre, these become the standards, which are intersubjectively agreed upon. These require consensus to alter, hence downgrading the role of individual subjectivity. Rule 3. Every medium retrieves something from the past that was obsolete earlier. Genre retrieves lineage and an iterative approach to creativity and storytelling. Before we had written forms of storytelling and music, stories would be passed down orally, and music was kept alive by its continued performance. This created room for iteration, variation, and interpretation, keeping the story alive and adaptable, same being true of music. Once these stories are written, they become static, in a sense dead. What genre retrieves is the iterative process that had been occurring before the invention of writing. By codifying semi-rigid boundaries that art must conform to, it forces new stories, music, paintings, etc., which are made within these rigid forms to follow in the lineage of that which came before it. Instead of iterating on the exact same story or song, new works of art must recapture the essence codified by genre, but in a new way, using new tools and perspectives. Rule 4. Every medium, when pushed to the limits of its potential, reverses or flips into an opposite or complementary form. Genre, when pushed to the extreme, stops allowing for the creation of art. It becomes caught in a cycle of self-reference and grows stale, too rigid and constricting to allow art to exist within it. Genre acts as a mediating, moderating force. The artist is a creative being who will create some art object. Genre gives them limits and an audience to enforce those limits. But when genre is pushed to the extreme in the form of genre standings having too tight a hold over the artist, it chokes the art it guided, turning it instead into a cookie-cutter repetition of 1,000 other identical variants. It's reduced from a force mediating the creative act to a recipe, a set of instructions and guidelines that can't be deviated from, strangling the very essence it was instantiated to preserve. Okay, so you might disagree with how I interpret genre through McLuhan's 4 laws, and if so, I'd be very curious to hear your takes in the comments. Anyways, moving on. The life cycle of genres is changing as the media environments they take place in are changing. Whilst genres can and many have hit a point of reversal, this is only really a problem for you if you accept genre at face value and take it too seriously. A genre is a category which is a description of everything within it. The category grows and develops as a result of new additions which stretch and develop the boundaries of the category. Genres can die when those boundaries are no longer being pushed, resulting in the same work of art being produced ad nauseum. But inversely, when the boundaries are pushed too far, genres can fragment and subdivide from its original form into multiple, smaller, incompatible, but at times stable forms, which is basically subgenre and creation of new genres. Genre sets the stage for a cultural ecosystem to play out with a depth and complexity that can be nauseating to navigate and even contemplate. There's a video by Timber on Toast called All My Homies Hate Skrillex, which makes for a perfect case study of the intricate internal dynamics of genre. Spoiler warning for Timber's video, as I'll be discussing and spoiling it, so I strongly recommend pausing this video and watching it if you haven't seen it already. It's very well put together and gives a lot of insights into the dubstep scene, documenting how it evolved from a more brooding and contemplative genre of electronic music with a focus on introspection to the monstrosity we're all aware of as dubstep today, most emblematically represented by Skrillex. The video tells the story of a genre going into reversal. Dubstep was born as a reaction to the extravagant and ostentatious UK garage scene. The earliest people making dubstep felt garage to be disconnected from their experience of British life and culture, and began making music which was more in line with how they were feeling. They brought a more down-to-earth, grounded, introspective approach to the music they made. And this resulted in an underground electronic music scene which developed and thrived for about a decade. But when smoking was banned in venues, audiences didn't stick around as much to listen to entire sets. They'd be ducking out periodically to have smoke breaks. In response to this, DJs would prioritize playing bangers rather than the more tonally well-rounded sets they'd been playing, as it encouraged people to stick around for more of their sets. This chasing of the audience turned into a spiral, which transformed the culture and music of dubstep, pushing it towards harder and harder tracks until that's all that it was. A genre which was in its early years defined by subtlety and contemplative energy being pushed to its limits underwent a reversal, recapitulating the ostentatious extravagance it was formed in defiant response to. Putting this video together, it's become clear to me that genre isn't necessarily such a bad thing, but it is a group thing. And crowds of humans interacting with each other can result in strange emergent behaviors, which can be subjectively undesirable. Accepting and engaging with genre on its own terms without awareness of the larger dynamics at play runs the risk of falling victim to the same type of audience capture which transformed dubstep from a genre of true artistic expression into heavy drops for drunk frat bros. Ultimately, genre is a medium by which larger-scale cultural forces play themselves out. Marshall McLuhan liked to reference an Edgar Allan Poe story called A Descent into the Maelstrom. In the story, a sailor, not paying attention to the weather around them, is caught in a giant whirlpool, a maelstrom, and is going to be dragged to their death. As this happens, they notice that as certain objects are pulled down into the vortex, they are plummeted to the depths. But other objects that fall in seem to be safely ejected clean away from the maelstrom. In studying how the objects fall in, noticing which are thrown out safely and which drown, the sailor is able to navigate the maelstrom in such a manner as to be safely ejected. McLuhan used this story as a rather apt analogy as to what's going on when it comes to navigating media. By studying what's going on, you have the power to navigate the larger unstoppable forces that are in motion. There's a line of his which cuts right to the heart of this. There is absolutely no inevitability as long as there is a willingness to contemplate what is happening. Having dedicated a lot of my focus in my younger years towards synthwave and vaporwave, I was compelled by those genres, and they've had an impact on the music I create and how I create. But at some point, I decided that genre wasn't serving me creatively. It felt like all I was doing was making other people's music or trying to make music to please other people, veering away from taking the creative decisions which I found the most exciting and engaging. Instead of making anything new and interesting, I was making music designed to be lost in a crowd. So I took a step away from it. Instead of making music within the confines of a specific genre, I focused on making music with the tools I enjoyed and engineering my own standards and limitations as I went, allowing things to be more random and freeform and following the music to see where it goes. I like analog synths and the aesthetic of science fiction, so those remained as stable influences. By existing and engaging in various genres, I've picked up influences which are detectable in the music I'm creating. It's not genreless music, it's just I haven't worked out what genre I'm operating in yet, and I'm okay with that. Stepping beyond genre is impossible, as genre is a system of categorizing, and whilst aware of it and whilst presenting one's music or other art to the world to be listened to or engaged with, it's in a category. It's impossible to not fit inside of some category, and the desire to escape categories just results in another different category that's just polar reflection of the others. You can't get out. The game is inescapable. It's just a matter of how you choose to play that game. Recognizing the dynamics of these systems and how they influence the art being produced gives you a lot of freedom in how you create art. You can go with the crowd, being swept along by the same forces everyone else is responding to, allowing yourself to potentially fall into the same trap that resulted in the bro-stepification of dubstep. Or you can opt out and really create something that's true to you. Create the art that really expresses something that only you can express, which can't necessarily be properly quantified by the pre-existing constraints of genre. Genre is one aspect of a large-scale cultural schema relating to how we're supposed to engage with music and artists. It's barely the whole picture, but it's a relevant part of the picture which is important to understand when navigating the modern media environment as an artist. Moving forward with eyes open is generally better than going blind. Ultimately, some of my favorite art objects across the various mediums I engage in are some degree of genre bending, either combining elements and tropes of contrasting genres or picking and choosing elements and tropes in an almost genre-agnostic manner. So if you're feeling confused and uncertain about what all this means, that's good. Use that. I believe in you. Also, if you could hit like and subscribe, that'd be great. Also, sign up for my Patreon. I occasionally post bonus content there, and contributors will get their names featured at the end of videos. See, this is where names would be if anyone has signed up for my Patreon before I posted this. If not, this is where names will be. I don't know.